The suffragette movement started as early as the Seneca Falls Convention. The suffragettes were mostly women who campaigned for other women's rights to vote. After years of peaceful protest that was getting them nowhere, women who believed in the movement started to become more militant and used violence to be noticed. Recently, there has been a lot of controversy over how much women have been getting paid compared to men in the same job, as well as the first female presidential candidate in a major party. Our topic is Nannie Helen Burroughs, a name not commonly known, but was a revolutionary African-American suffragette. The unknown suffragette Nannie Helen Burroughs was an African-American educator, orator, religious leader, civil rights activist, feminist, and businesswoman in the United States. As well as Nannie, there is other people that should be recognized for what they did to shape the world today. As an African-American journalist and activist who led an anti-lynching crusade in the United States, it is no wonder you would know her. Ada B. Wells was the daughter of slaves and was born in Holly Springs, Mississippi on the 16th of July, 1862. She went on to become crucial in groups striving for African-American justice.
Although not taught in most schools, Nannie Helen Burroughs was also an important person in the Revolution and was well known. She was born in Orange, Virginia on May 2, 1879. Burroughs and her mother moved to Washington, D.C. to take advantage of the better schools and ended up attending the preparatory high school for colored youth, where some of her mentors were the semi-famous Anna Julia Cooper and Mary Church Terrell.
She then relocated to Kentucky, where she attended the Eckstein-Norton University and eventually received an honorary MA degree in 1907. With no proper college degree, she wasn't able to get a job in Washington, D.C. as a teacher, which she had strived to be.
She moved to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and became the associate editor for the Christian Banner, a Baptist newspaper. Burroughs soon returned to Washington, D.C., where, despite receiving a high rating on the civil service exam, she was refused a position in the public high school system. Although she was refused jobs in 2 schools, Nannie still left her imprint in the world. In 1909, Burroughs founded the National Training School for Women and Girls as a boarding school. When the school first opened, there were only 35 students in total who were trained in domestic science, business, sewing, printing, barbering, and shoe repair. The school was independent, as most of its funding and donation came from individual and organizational contributions made from outside parties. The school also sustained itself through the operation of a laundry, the sale of student-made goods, and a summer school for women. Students were also required to take a Negro history class, using books owned by Burroughs' close colleague, Carter G. Woodson. Burroughs also worked to assist women pursuing employment opportunities as well. In 1920, she founded the National Association of Wage Earners, focusing on improving wages and working conditions for domestic workers. Burroughs soon became a leader in the National Baptist Convention, also in women and civil rights movements. Her funeral was held at 19th Street Baptist Church and was attended by more than 5,500 people, some of whom she'd never met.
Nannie's legacy left behind what she fought for. She fought for what the 15th Amendment did not state. The 15th Amendment to the Constitution granted African American men the right to vote. It states, "Right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude." As you just heard, this only referred to men, not women. Women were just there. They were to be seen and never heard. Everyone seemed to accept society's claim that they were not meant for politics and not meant to meet in the voting booth, only because of their gender. Women were always seen as the housewives at home taking care of their families. We have come a long way since the time in which Nannie lived. The values she fought for have been fixed, but still, there's a large difference between men and women. Pay inequality figures are still unequal and is even worse for women of color. African American women only earn 72 cents for every dollar men earn, according to an article on New Republic.
By the 1900s, the country had regressed to a state where African Americans had no rights. After a period in Reconstruction where African Americans had gained a lot of power and choice, this was a change for them. When African Americans and poor white men looked like they might form a coalition in the South against the popular interests, there was a surge of extreme racism and then a temporary converging of what becomes the solid South. As a result of this, poor and wealthy whites began to unite in the late 1880s against African Americans and shut them out. African Americans still tried to make themselves politically known as they recognized how important this was on the local level. By the 1890s, African Americans had moved from a period in which they actually had a voice in the Southern government to a situation where they had no say whatsoever, and in addition to that, the violence did not stop, no matter how much people tried. The white Americans made it their business to make sure that African Americans did not attempt to represent themselves in any way, whether it was by voting or trying to buy land. The white South resorted to terrorism to keep their unjust way of life going even after the Civil War was over. Their methods consisted on lynching and hurting African Americans in any way possible. They had to live with the violence and had learned to accept it. During the last 16 years of the 19th century, there were about 2,500 lynchings in the South. The majority of them were African Americans or those who supported them. Times changed, and by 1900, the South was no longer what we called Jim Crow, which meant that it was desegregated. Laws were passed which made it illegal to segregate public accommodations and to segregate people on basis of race in restaurants, theaters, and on trains.
Here's an urban odyssey and some words about Nannie Helen Burroughs and the summary of her life.
The recurrent migration to Washington, D.C. of African Americans in search of freedom, jobs, and justice, and their building of black communities have shaped the city's history from the beginning. Nannie Helen Burroughs came to Washington from rural Virginia in 1883, a time of increasing segregation and Jim Crowism. Acutely aware of the inferior education offered at that time to blacks, especially black girls, she struggled to find a way to equip them with the skills and knowledge they needed to face the world. She not only had to fight the prejudices of society, but also the condescension of the black male hierarchy of her church. Undaunted, she established the National Training School for Women and Girls in the Lincoln Heights section of Washington, D.C. in 1909. Until her death in 1961, she walked and talked with the most important leaders of her time, and they listened to her. Join us as the
Nannie Helen Burroughs died on May 20th, 1961 of natural causes at the age of 82. Her funeral was held at the 19th Street Baptist Church where she was a member. She made a great impact on many African American lives. As a woman of great will and power, she did her deed of helping others and the world to get to where it is today.